Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. I just noticed 2 minutes ago that there is a bit of a delay on the sound today, so if I'm moving my mouth and you hear the sound a little bit later, that's why. So here you can see it. I don't know if it's been there all of the time or if I just noticed today. I tried my trusty cable, this here, and it was the same. So it's not caused by me using a wireless connection between here and the computer. It's something else. Maybe I'll figure it out, but not now. So what are we going to do today? Last time we implemented a tagging system, or we started implementing a tagging system using Antigravity and Gemini, and everything was stored in Firestore. And surprisingly enough, well, you know, it's always amazing when you see the magic working. Surprisingly enough, or magically, we ended up having a really nice implementation. So for everybody who didn't attend last time, let me quickly switch to the screen share and then I can bring this up and we can take a look at that. So we have our application sitting here. And we have our tags in this overview screen. So if I go into the normal inbox, we can see that the individual items on the list view have this nice little gray area where we see the tags. And then when we go back, we can select one of those tags. For example, let's look at the Swift tags and look at that. There seems to be a problem. And it's looking like it's a ±1 problem. Look at that. Well, anyways, so that's probably something that we need to work on, right? But let's try something. Let's go in and find something that isn't tagged yet. So this article here doesn't have any tags yet. So we can go into the metadata dialog. We can see the tags field here, and we can enter a comma-separated list of tags. So tag, yeah, and that's another thing that we need to fix. We need to turn off the auto capitalization. So tag 1, tag 2, and then when I save that, we have a nice crash. So that's another thing we need to look at. So did it even persist? Probably not. Let's take a look. Nope. Let me try this one more time. Tag 1. Okay. All right. So we've got a little bit of work here ahead of ourselves. And also in the implementation, there is another problem because the implementation is completely client-based, and that is a little problem because of something that I'm going to show you in a moment. So I've set up a new Git. You know, sometimes you completely blank. So I know where to look. So I wrote about this on my newsletter. A work tree, that's what it's called. So last week I wrote about work trees, or I curated an article about Git Worktrees, and here we go. So why you should stop stashing and use work trees. Here we go. So that's what we're doing. This here is a Git work tree, and you can see that if I open this, for example, in Tower. So Tower is one of my favorite tools on the Mac. It's a really nice tool for working on your Git repositories. And you can see that we've got a bunch of branches here. And I've got this one branch here called Season 4, Episode 2, Improve Smart Tagging. And this is based off of the main branch. And down here, we've got a list of work trees. So currently, because I opened my Git Tower window from this folder here, I am literally in that folder. So I can probably show you. So if I click on that git ignore file and then say reveal in Finder, we can see that I am in this Sofia folder here. But if I switch the work tree and I go to this work tree by double clicking, I'm still in the same Git Tower work window, but I am now in this other folder here. And that is really, really cool because it makes it so easy to switch between different branches without having to, stash your current state of the workspace folder, and then having to remember, oh my God, which stashes do I have and which branch do they belong to? So, you have to keep all this mental load. And instead, you see this in a very nice visual way. So if I want to go back to this other, and then let me quickly show you. So if you expand this here, you can also see, okay, so this is the branch that I'm currently on. So if I now double click on this folder here, we go back and we're now back on the main branch and we are in the Sofia directory. Okay. So it's good to hear that there is no delay. I'm so happy. So probably something local. But yeah, it's a rather complicated setup. So I'm glad it works out for you. Yeah, and I see a bunch of people on the stream. So why don't you say hello and where you're dialing in from? I'll do the same. If I can find my chat window. Hello from Hamburg, Germany. All right. My goal is to have one live stream where we've got people from all over the place. It's going to be a challenge, but it's on the bucket list. Okay, so let's go back here. So I mentioned that I'm on this work tree, but okay, where's my... I need to find my VS Code window, or I need to open a new one. So first of all, let's go into the correct folder, code. Is this the right one? No. This is the right one. And also let me move this up here. Here we go. And then I can open this in Antigravity. And move Antigravity up here. Okay. So let's open a file quickly to see if this is large enough for you to see. Should be fine. So if it's not large enough, please let me know. And this is a little bit cumbersome here. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna remove the group chat for a moment. And then we can take a look at what's going on in the application. So first of all, let's try to figure out why this doesn't, why it crashes. So I am in Antigravity, which is a VS Code-based code editor, and I've got this plugin here called FlowDeck. And FlowDeck is really, so it consists of two parts. One part is a CLI, and the other part is a VS Code plugin. And so this part here is the plugin, and one of the really good features of it is it helps you to just run stuff from VS Code. So you just install that plugin, and then you can basically just say, okay, I want to run this scheme on one of those simulators or even on a physical device. So if we look here, we can see that these are my devices and test devices. So I can run this on a physical device as well. So let's run this here on a simulator. So it might take a while. No, we don't want to stop the build. And then you need to be a bit patient while it's firing up the debugger. But it will be possible to debug from VS Code, and that is really nice. And while it's doing that, let me see if I can pull up the log, and we can go into the FlowDeck logs. And once it connects to the simulator, we should be able to see the logs. So, I mean, what it's doing behind the scenes is basically running a couple of, oh yeah, we need to select the target. So it's running a couple of command line scripts basically to, let's use this one, to compile your application, to connect to the simulator. So it's really very much the same what Antoine does with Rocket Sim, right? Rocket Sim is this flying window here, which allows you to configure and control your simulator. And I think most of what this does actually runs shell commands to use sim control to control the simulator. Of course, there is a lot more, but I think that's at the core of the tool. So I think FlowDeck does very much the same. So now it's resolving dependencies. But I guess Apple still has some magic sauce how they can make running an application from Xcode a lot more snappy, right? You press Command R and boom, there you are. I mean, it still has to compile. Okay, here we go. So you can see that we have our log output here, and this looks very much the same as what you would see on your Xcode log. For example, here we have our Firebase log output. We can see that we've got Firebase Analytics in the application. So let's now try to reproduce our crash here. So I'm gonna click on this. It doesn't show up. We've got one here. And now let's go into one of our articles and then try to store a tag. So let's do this, tag 1. Okay, and here we are. So here is the crash. So what is happening? So we've got a bot signal, and the problem seems to be when setting the data. Okay. So here it says field author is specified in your field mask but is missing from input data. That is quite interesting. And we can take a look at why that is. So let's try to see, can we still see the... So we see our stack trace here. And I wonder if we can, yeah, here we go. So here are our variables. And we can see merge fields says to expect title, site name, author, excerpt, image URL, notes and tags. And we should take a look at encoded to see what we have. So we've got title, we've got tags, we've got site name, user ID, is flagged, reading time, excerpt, created at, ID, is read, full text, URL, readable HTML, and is archived. So and that means that we're telling Firestore to expect something that we're not sending. Okay, so let's see if we can move up the stack trace to see where we're coming from. So here we are, here's our call stack. We are here, and so the caller is this here. And here we can see that we provide the fields that we want to merge. Ooh, okay. So, yeah. Okay. This is a piece of code that we implemented last time, and we used the model implemented that. And you can see that using this, you know, we can see the commit message, and here are the details. So 5 days ago, that was during the last live stream, add tags array to the artifact model, create tag model with usage count, implement tag remote store, and so on and so forth. So why is this a problem? This is going to crash, but I want to show you why. We can just rerun the application. So, and you can see that Flowdeck has those really nice keyboard shortcuts that map Xcode's shortcuts. So I can just now say run without building because we didn't change the code. So let me show you the problem here. So we have this article here, and then if you look at this metadata dialog, you can see that all of the fields are filled out except for the author field, the notes field, and the tags field. So, and that means that we're telling Firestore, well, you know what, you should be expecting that we're sending an author, but we're not sending an author, right? So instead of trying to fix this myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Antigravity to help me fix this issue. And let's do this the proper way. So I've got a GitHub project here, and I want to use like a full life cycle to do this. Okay, let's go into Antigravity again, and then I'm going to say, and also let me get my, so whenever you see me Whenever you see me talking to the computer and nothing's happening, that's what's happening. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Hello. Okay. So there is a problem in the application. Whenever we update the metadata for an article that doesn't have all the fields set, the application crashes. For example, if I'm trying to update an article that doesn't have an author field set, the application crashes and I don't know why, right? So that might be what a user might say. Can you please create an issue on the repository for this application so we can deal with it later? Okay, so what should be happening is that Antigravity realizes I've got a GitHub MCP server installed, and that it then tries to create an issue on the repository. So if we bring this up, we should see the issue. Yeah, here we go. So crash when updating article with missing metadata. Steps to reproduce, open an article that is missing the author field, attempt to update its metadata, observe the crash. Nice. So that is pretty nice, and I can now assign this to my project over here, and then it should show up, and it's here, and now I want to work on this, so I move it over to the is ready field. What's this? No iteration? Oh yeah, so let's also assign an iteration. Here we go, current iteration. So now we are in iteration 2. Okay. Okay, just making sure that we are on the correct tag here. So let's try to have Antigravity fix this for us. Okay, can you please fix issue number 219 for me? So let's see. Okay, so what's happening? So it analyzes the metadata service, the artifact editor view, and then it searches more code. Okay. Yeah, so I think it's important to understand the artifact editor view to know what data we need, and hopefully it will get the clue that we say the author is optional. So somewhere it says the author is optional. So I also am curious if it will come back with an implementation plan. Sometimes it thinks, oh, you know, this is so easy, I can just straightforward fix this, and then it will not come up with an implementation plan. Oftentimes it will come back with an implementation plan, and then there is something that we can review. Okay, it's being very thorough. I think there's... Okay. It's a lot what it's thinking through. Oh, even creating a test case. Okay. Zeroing on the solution. Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of ways how you could resolve that. One of the ways is to make sure that if you are in the artifact editor view, that when you update the artifact metadata, to make sure that even if the author is optional, to make sure that it is set. Let's quickly have a look. So here we've got our artifact, and then we're binding to the artifact. Ooh, what's interesting? Oh, there we go. Okay, so Okay, so it thinks that the reason why there is a crash is that when we open the screen, that it's trying to bind to an optional property of an existential type. So it first wants to fix that. I mean, that's also probably something that is error prone, but it's not the reason for our error. Let me double check what we said on the crash. Open an article. So it's ambiguous. I didn't say that happens when you save. And so you could read this as open an article that is missing the author field, and then when you update this in the UI, it crashes. So you could interpret it like that. So it's now building, and then I assume the next step will be to run this. And didn't it say it also wanted to create a test case? I can't see the test case. Okay, trying to understand how Git works. So what's a cloud function? That is something that we'll get to in a moment. So a cloud function is a piece of code that runs not on your phone, but in the cloud. And it is part of Firebase's serverless offering. So if you go into the Firebase console, you should be able to see this functions section here. And we already have a couple of cloud functions. For example, one that performs semantic Q&A, and we've got another one that updates embeddings. And there are a bunch that are there that will be executed when a user is deleted, so that we delete all of the user's data. And cloud functions are implemented in TypeScript. And what I want to do in a moment is to go in and make sure that whenever we store when we store an artifact and the user has entered a new tag on the artifact or updated the tag, that we take this tag and then automatically update the tags collection in the database. So let's look at this. I have fixed issue number 219. The crash was caused by binding directly to an optional property of an existential type. I refactored editor view to use a local concrete draft type for editing, which avoids this issue and provides better transaction safety. The changes have been committed and pushed to the branch. You can verify this by running the app. Okay, let's do this. So Command R. Does this work? Probably only if we are in a piece of Swift code. Nope. Build and run. So once this connects to the simulator should come to the front, to the foreground, and then we can try this out. Here we go. And let's go into the same article here. Add a new tag, tag 1, save. That apparently worked. So we've got tag 1 there. And let's see if tag 1 also appears in our list here. It does not. So let's go back and see if it was persisted at all. No, it was not. Okay. So I think, well, let's try something else. So I'm going to add a couple of notes here. Hello, this is a note. Save this. Okay, we've got some logging here. Okay, this is apparently output from mapping. If we go back here, we still have the node, but we are still in the same view, so the state should have been kept. So apparently when storing this, it doesn't work. And even so, if I make a change here swiftly, let me make a change on something that actually is something that we see on the list. So we change the title, and it should have been changed here. Well, it's hard to see because it's at the end. So battery life. We're working on the battery life thing. So I'm going to add exclamation marks to the beginning. So it's not updating. Okay. I don't think that this was the problem, and I want you to roll back this change because the problem is somewhere else. So the code changes that you made now result in the application not being to persist any changes to the metadata at all, even when I modify an existing title, for example. So please, let's roll this back and undo the commit on the repository and on the branch. So let's first do that. So if we look at this, you know, it did send this PR here. Oh no, it's not a PR yet. It is a commit. So it made those changes, and I don't think these were correct. So let's undo this. Yeah, so it's resetting the branch to the previous commit, which is a safe way to do this. And it should push this to the repository, roll back the changes, has been undone locally and on the remote branch. We're going to check this. What's happened here? Has it? I'm not so sure. Have you pushed this to the remote repository? Oh yeah, this commit does not belong to any branch on the repository, so it did disconnect this. Okay. So if we go to this branch and then, yeah, it says it's up to date with main. Yeah, yes, I have. So I should have been more specific when I filed that bug report. Actually, what happens is when I open the metadata editor and then I add a tag on an artifact that doesn't have any author, for example, and then I tap the checkmark button to persist the data back to the database, the application crashes. I can provide the exact location where it crashes. Just a moment. And I think it was here. So let's close this. Let's search for merge fields. Here we go. And let's see if we can add this. Yes. I think the issue is that we're telling the setData method that we want to merge the author field, which is not filled. So we need to make sure that either we're not merging this field or that we are properly handling the fact that it might not be filled and instead be optional. Okay, so that should be much more along the lines of what is happening. So it's now analyzing. Oh, also, can you please update the bug report on the issue tracker? Okay, I already went ahead and implemented a fix. It's using update data. Okay, so first of all, I want you to update the bug report with my description. And then I also think that it is probably not such a good idea to not use merge fields because we want to avoid accidentally overwriting anything that another user or the user might have updated from a different client. So it said it updated the description of the bug. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so we've got more details. So you are correct that we must avoid overwriting fields that we don't intend to update. The crash happens because that data requires all fields listed in the merged fields to be present in the encoded object. When author is nil, the standard codable implementation omits it from the dictionary, causing that data to crash because it can't find the author key to merge. I have refactored the code to use update data with a dictionary instead. Why this works? Update data takes a dictionary where we can explicitly provide default values like an empty string or handled optionals for fields that might be missing in our struct. Why it's safe. Update data is a partial update. It only updates the fields present in the dictionary. It does not overwrite the entire document, so it behaves exactly like merge fields in that regard, preserving any other fields that might have been changed elsewhere. I'll verify the build now. I can't see it working, but let's run this again. Build and run. Okay. Show errors. So this so I wonder if this is a real debug or compile error. Oh yeah, it seems to be a problem. The compiler is unable to type textures in reasonable time. No, this was not good. I didn't want to go to a new. So let's clean this. This looks like it might be not intended. So these 3 lines are exactly the same as these, minus the update data. Okay. Then run. We're building the application. Can we see the build log? Here we can. Here we go. We can. Show me the errors. But why is this just too complicated? Let's close this and then take a look at this. It doesn't look very complicated to me. I mean, what if we take, oh, that doesn't work. So let's open this in Xcode. And let's make sure we select the same simulator, this one. So we've been working in Artifact Remote Store. And here's the change that we made. So Xcode needs to build this as well. And then we've got the same problem here. So why? Okay, so let me copy this, then discard the change. So this looks better. So what is the problem here? I mean, update data does exist, doesn't it? Update data. Yeah, so it does exist. Okay, so maybe this is indeed a little bit too complex. No, this is fine. Still fine. Still fine. This is all still fine. Seems to be the tags are the problem. We need to provide a string here. No. That is interesting. What happens if we remove all of this? Ooh. What? For real? I mean, this is wild. So is it the number of fields? I can't believe this. Uh-huh. I mean, these are all optional, so there is no difference between them, right? The author is an optional string. The nodes are an optional string. It actually seems to be the number of fields. That is unbelievable. I mean, the title is non-optional, so we can't. Yeah. Okay, let's see what this has to say about it. I get a compile error about the expression being too complex for the compiler to resolve it in reasonable time, and I have the impression that if we uncomment some of the lines in this update data call, the compiler is able to compile it, which is really, really weird. So do you have any idea about that? Okay, so now the next step is to use explicit typing. Well, that might definitely help the compiler. Ooh, yeah, but not like this. Oh, okay, it's up there. Okay. Oh, wow, now we've got dependence version conflicts. Oh. Oh, what? Get at? It thinks that it's done? Really? Okay, let's try this. Well, at least it compiles. So once the application boots up again, I want to try something. So first, let's try updating the metadata. Oh, no. I just wanted to go to the beginning of the line, like this. Okay, so at least it persisted this. So now if we add a tag, let's use hello. No crash. And now we should have our tag in here, hello. And we've got one item that is tagged like that. Good. So let's filter this and enter field. We first need to find out do we know the name of the user search? So this is probably Fred. Fred Firebase at gmail.com. Here he is. Let's copy the user ID, and then we can go into the database and filter and see all of user ID, add condition equals, and here are all of this user's documents. So now if I make a change, we might be able to see which document we're dealing with. This one. Good. So now what I want to do is I want to make a change here. Hello world. And I am going to make a change here. So I'm going to set the author, and the author is Antoine. So update this here, and then, so it's not updated here because we're editing, so this is disconnected on purpose. And now we're saving it, and boom, there you go. It overwrote what was in the author field. So, So I know that you tried to tell me that using update data should work fine, because even if the user changes the data from a different location, the data will not be overwritten. That is wrong. Here is what I did. I opened an artifact in the metadata editor and I added a tag. While I still was in the metadata editor, I went into the Firestore backend and changed the author field and provided a name for the author. When I then saved the metadata for this artifact with the new tag, it overrode the author name. So we can't use update data. We need to use set data with merge fields. Do you understand me? Can you please suggest a way to implement this in a safe and secure manner, even if some of the fields might be optional? Before you go into an implementation, I want you to think hard and then come up with a plan. And please show the implementation plan to me so we can discuss it and then see if it's the correct solution, and then I will approve it. But no code changes without my approval. Okay. It's like, it's like working with an intern sometimes. Yeah, so this is one of the crucial things that the core issue is preventing unintentional overrides with set data and merge fields. Even sending an empty string or null for a field which results in the field being written overrides concurrent changes. And that is why you need to use set data with update merge fields in cases like that. So yeah, and using oh yeah, Lars, I think that's an interesting question. If that makes the expression easier to parse, but you saw that it apparently had to do with the number of array elements in there, and maybe because the concrete types of those elements were hard to understand for the compiler. So implementation plan, dynamic merge fields. Goal is to use set data from merge fields to update artifact metadata in a way that prevents crashes, i.e. it does not attempt to merge fields that are missing from the encoded object, and prevents accidental overrides. These are the two key things. So instead of a hard-coded list of merge fields, we will construct the list dynamically based on which properties of the artifact are actually non-nil. And that is a good idea, I think. So we will start with a list of always present fields, like title because it's non-optional. And then for each optional field, it will check if the property is not nil, and if so, it will add the key to the merge fields list. If it is nil, omit this. And then it explains why this works. Yeah, so set data crashes if a key is missing in the encoded JSON. I mean, it doesn't crash, it throws an error. So we could handle the error and then implement a fallback, but I think it's smarter to realize, well, we will run into this issue, and so program defensively. By ensuring we only add keys to the merge fields if the value is non-nil, we guarantee the key exists in the encoded data. Override protection. If artifact.author is nil, meaning the user hasn't edited or loaded it, we exclude author from the update. Firestore will leave the existing author field in a database alone, preserving any concurrent updates made by other client. So here are the proposed changes. Start with mandatory fields, then add all of the fields that are potentially nil. And then we have the merge fields, and that looks very good to me. Manual tests. Okay, this looks good. Go ahead. So this teaches us two lessons right here. So the first lesson is you need to have an understanding of how the APIs work. And if I had known that set data has the merge fields parameter and how it works, and that it has a different semantic than the update data method, then we wouldn't have been able to implement this fix here. The other thing is, because we don't have any tests at the moment, it is hard for the coding agent to figure out if the implementation is correct, right? So that is definitely something that we should probably fix. And yeah, definitely something to look into rather sooner than later, to be honest. Yeah, and then the knowledge about how APIs work, that is something that needs to go into the context. So either you'll have to add this to your agents.md file, or you have to provide a skill or something else that teaches the agent how these APIs work. I mean, you can implement an MCP server that allows the agent to read the documentation, for example, and then the documentation needs to be reasonably complete. If the documentation doesn't explain how the setData method works and what merge fields is there for, and that it prevents accidental overrides, then it's only guesswork, or the agent can fall back on world knowledge that it has from, I don't know, reading lots of code, reading lots of questions online. I have implemented the approved plan. So we have a dynamic merge strategy, and apparently it compiles. And now we can verify it ourselves. So let's run the application one more time. And then let's see what happens. So this one here now does, oh, it doesn't have an author. Oh yeah, because you overwrote it. Okay, we saved that. It's got our nodes. And now let's do the same again. I'm going to make a change here and a change there. So I'm going to... that was uncalled for. User ID. Condition is equal to... Is this? Yep. It's the correct user ID. So which one was it? This one? Yes. So let's update the author. Antoine, update. And then oh no. Really? That is surprising. Let's go here. Okay, first of all, let's accept all of the changes, and then let's set a breakpoint here. And so this is currently, I mean, it's an empty string. Yeah, that is probably the problem here, right? Yeah. So here's what's happening. Let's go back into the application. So, and let's go back to the top, navigate into this artifact, go in here. The author is empty. And let's add another tag here. I'm going to edit the author here, Antoine, update. Then save. It should hit our breakpoint. And then let's go through the individual updates. So fields to update, and let's have a look at that. So title, site name, author. So why does it add the author? Want to have a guess? It did add the author because the author is not nil. So if we look here, we can see that the author is some empty string. And that's the case because when we loaded it from the database, it was empty. And if it's empty, Codable will always produce an empty string. So here in our condition, it says, is it nil? No, it's not nil. And that is why it's going to be added. And that is why now when we go down here to the set data, let's see if we can hit the breakpoint. So when we go here, and then let's see if we can dive in. Nope. Because it doesn't. Oop. Interesting. Okay, so we are in the Firestore implementation. And return dictionary values. So here is the mapping of our document. We've got our ID, the user ID, and a bunch of other things. And then we go back. Okay, yeah, so it basically overrides the artifact with what we had. And that is okay. What we can do, so first of all, let's finish this. Yeah, it's finished. So I think if I were to delete this field, and then try to open this again, so the author is still empty here. I'll save this. So we should have a new tag. Let's ignore the breakpoints for now. So we've got all of the tags, but no author, right? Okay, so it saved it. So now let's add another tag, and I'm going to add a field. So I'm going to add the author field, and now I'll say it's Antoine. So now the author field is not present in what we've got in memory, but it's present in what's on the database. So if I save it now, and there you go, it didn't overwrite it because it was nil in the in memory. Okay, that was a long-winded way of figuring out why we had this crash and make sure that it doesn't crash anymore. So that's nice. And now let's go and get back to what we came for in the first place. And before we do that, let's double check if we committed. Yeah, it's committed the changes to the branch. Here they are. Okay. Good. So, can we stop? Good. Close all. Okay, so now we can mark this as fixed. Okay, I've tried the application and this very specific error does not occur anymore, so I think we can mark the issue as resolved. Please, let's stay on the same branch and continue working because I want to implement something entirely different. Well, something different. So, and that means in a moment, this issue should close. Update issue. It's marked as done and closed. And so now on our board, it should be gone. Nice. So we still have a bunch of issues. Hello. Yep. So let's see, auto-suggest tags, AI-powered tags. So none of these are stuff that we want to implement work on today, but instead what we need to do is, and for that, let's go back into the code. We'll need to make sure that storing our tags, storing an artifact automatically updates the tags. So artifact remote store sources, and here we go. So in our tag remote store, we have this function increment usage, and what it does is it will go through all of the tags that we sent in, and then it will update the count. And that means that the count for the tags will only be updated if we store it from inside the application. And that is probably also the reason why we had a bunch of tags that apparently weren't updated correctly. So it seems like no artifacts match the Swift filter. There is one artifact for the Firestore filter, but it says 2. Why does it say 2? Right? Is it really the case that we don't have more than just this one? So we can go through. So these are all the documents that this user has. Let's look for all the Firestore ones. So here is one for Firestore. So it seems like there's really just one that is for Firestore, and we can see if we can, yeah, so we can filter. Oh, it's even none. Wait. Yeah, so it's it was red. So this number here, that is stored in the database. And if we go here, no, not delete. And if we go here, so this is our user ID Firestore, and it says usage count 2. So what happens if I just say 200? And then, boom, we see the 200. So that is not correct. So the real count actually is 1, because we only have one document that has the Firestore tag. And it's this one. So what happens if we remove this? So we just keep the Swift tag. And then let's have a look at that. So usage count 0, that's good. And let's re-add this. And I'm going to make this smaller so we can see how it updates. Firestore. Well, come on. Firestore codable. Save. Okay, so this has updated and codable was created. So let's go back here. Let's start a new conversation. When the user updates the metadata for one of the artifacts, we use code in the tag remote store.swift to update the count of the tags on the respective tag. Can you please tell me why this is a problem if we do it this way? Keep in mind, this is a multi-user application that has multiple clients, and the user might be using the application on multiple clients at about the same time. Okay, so I'm providing a lot of context there. I could have not provided that context. I'm being nice here. But let's see if it can give us the correct answer. So the correct way to do this is to implement a Cloud function that will be triggered whenever an artifact is updated, and it will have a look at the tags, and then it will find all the tags that are listed in the tags array, and will find the documents, and it will increment or decrement the number of usages. Okay, so and because I asked for an explanation, it's not going to make any changes to the code, but it comes up with an implementation plan. The current implementation of decrement usage relies on the local self tags array to determine if a tag exists. In a multi-user environment, this local state may be stale, leading to race conditions where decrements are skipped or incorrect logic is applied. So that's also a problem for increment usage, isn't it? So, and then it says that it's going to implement a change that changes the behavior. And says a separate Cloud function is recommended for cleaning up unused tags. So here are the proposed changes. Modify the decrement usage. Okay, so this is not complete at all. So I think your explanation is not complete. what happens if the user uses a Chrome extension, for example, or if they run the application on a separate device, for example, their iPad, and then they add a new artifact that uses the same tag as a document where they remove it from. I think we need to move the tag usage handling entirely to the backend. This will also make it easier to keep the data in sync if we ever end up adding other clients, for example, on platforms like Android. So let's see what it comes back with. I'm curious because, I opened the project like this on purpose. And as you might see, we have this backend folder here. And that backend folder contains functions. And you can see that we've got a couple of triggers here. And these triggers are there to compute embeddings and implement this Q&A flow for the application. So there is infrastructure for Cloud Functions, and Antigravity should be able to detect this. So let's see. Yeah, so it had a look at the embeddings code here, and then it should have realized, well, this is doing something entirely different. And now let's take a look at the implementation plan. So it suggests to add a new file to the backend called tags.ts and implement an update user tags trigger that triggers for onDocumentWritten for all the artifacts. And then it determines the user ID, and it computes the added tags and removed tags by comparing the before and after state of the data. So whenever you modify a document in Cloud Firestore, the trigger will receive two states, the before state and the after state. So the before state is what is in the database or what was in the database when you wanted to make the modification, and the after state is the state that you want to write, and then it compares these and decide what to do. So, and that helps it to compute which tags have been removed and which tags have been added. For each added tag, increment the count of the respective tags document, and for each removed tag, decrement the count. Then in the client-side code, it will remove the increment usage and decrement usage, and it will entirely remove the update tags count, but it will keep the snapshot listener because we'll still want to listen to that document collection. And then it will remove the calls, and it will make sure that all of our add and remove and update metadata functions only touch the artifacts collection. That is a good idea. So let me ask one question. How can you ensure integrity Are you going to batch those updates? Because we've been using batch updates on the client as well, right? So we might change a couple of tags, right? So if you add 10 tags to a document, then you need to increment the counts on all of those 10 tags. And if you remove 2 tags and add 5 tags, then you need to update all those documents. And if one of those updates fails, the entire update should fail. Right? So it's not a good idea to say, well, we were able to remove 2 of the tags, but we weren't able to update to add 3 tags. We only were able to partially do that. You should say, well, we weren't able to make this modification at all. So it will use Firestore write batch. I've updated the implementation plan. Good. Let's proceed. And while it's doing that, let me check on the stream. So LinkedIn stream is looking good. YouTube stream is looking good. I have no idea how the Twitter stream is doing because that seems to always be a problem. So let me quickly check on my phone. Where am I? Not entirely sure. Something went wrong. Well, that's too bad. Anyways, so I have implemented the backend trigger and it is here. Well, no. This is the code it removed. So lots of code gone from the client and from the artifact remote store as well. And then we've got the update user tags. And here is the implementation. So if we first get the new data and the previous data, we determine the user ID. If there is no user ID, it will just bail. Then gets the tags, the new ones and the old ones. And it then finds out which ones were added, which ones were removed. And it will then batch those updates. So here we start the batch. Then we go over all the tags, add them to the batch. We go over all the removed tags, add them to the batch, and then we commit the batch. So this looks good to me. So I have completed the code changes. Next steps, please deploy the Cloud Functions to your Firebase project. So we could deploy that to the remote implementation, or we could play it safe and deploy it to the emulator. So I think we should play it safe and first deploy this to the local emulator. Can you please check if this is set up in the project? So this will obviously require us to set up new data because it's been a while since we've launched the emulator, so it probably doesn't have the correct data model anymore, but that should not be a problem. We can just delete that. And then if you remember from a while ago when we worked with the emulator, there's always this tiny little issue that the emulator has different authentication tokens than the production system. So if you have a signed-in user that's signed in on the iOS simulator, it has an authentication token. Let's say the token is ABCDE. And then the same, when you use that authentication token and go to the Firebase emulator, the emulator will say, I'm sorry, I have no idea about that token. I've never seen this before. And so that user will be rejected. So what you'll have to do is basically just reset the data on the iOS application on the simulator so that you can properly connect to the emulator. Let's see. Yes, the project is set up for local emulation. However, it looks like dependencies are not installed in your functions folder. So we'll have to do that. Can you help me? So it's running npm install in the functions folder over here. So now we are downloading all the Node modules. That is looking good. Okay, I might need to authenticate to make sure that we can get through the corporate portal. Okay. Please start the emulator for me. Commencing emulator setup. Love it. Oh, we don't have the Firebase command? Well, it can use npx Firebase. That should do the trick. Yep, yes, please. Hello. I'd rather gonna use npm install. So it is quite confident. That is good to hear. So we've got the emulators running. And now we need to go and change this configuration. So we want to make sure to use the emulator and then run it like this, and then on the Oops. What happened here? Oh. So it seems that the code is broken, but so it's just the delete function, right? That's something I quite don't understand. You know, sometimes editing a file ends up with some weird artifacts where we have some random characters that didn't get removed. So let's double check that we're actually using the emulator. Using the emulator, yes. So who are we? Sign out and then sign in. I don't think that we have a user. Sign up. test@test.com. No, I don't want to fill a strong password. I want to use one that I can easily remember. And then let's get something that we can store. Oh yeah, why not use this? Copy. Paste. Okay. So let's add a tag. Git tools. So 2 documents for some, and here we go. Why is it stored twice? Let's try adding another one. That is unexpected. New tab. Nope. And then let's take agent skills, share, copy, let's add this, save it. That's funny, why does it always save 3 documents? That is so weird. Delete. So now let's go in here, add a tag, and this is obviously AI and skills. So skills and AI have 1, and now let's remove the skills tag. So skills should now fall back to 0. Yes, skills is at 0 and tags is at 1. So now let's open the emulator on the local hosts. Is it 8,000? Nope. Okay. Let's see. It's been such a long time since I've used it. Telemetry, project root, Firestore. Here we go. So auth is running on 4001. Here is Firestore. Here are our artifacts and our tags. So AI is at 1, Git is at 2 for a reason I don't understand. But let's do the following. So let's go back to Antoine's article and let's add another one, and let's add skills, and also let's add agents. Save. So hopefully, yep, this is looking good. So agents is at 1 and skills is also at 1. And now if I go to Marco's article and for some reason I decide, well, this is also an AI article, save that, boom. And now AI should be at 2. And there it is. And our application should have updated. I mean, I could have left that open. So let's say we realize, well, Marco's article actually is not about AI. I'm going to delete that. So now AI should fall back to 1. Oh, that's interesting. It didn't actually go up to 2, right? So what is the problem here? So I'm going to add this. Oh yeah, there it is. So it's at 2. And now let's remove it again. Boom. Yeah, it's at 1. So now let's say we want to rename tools to tool for whatever reason. So no, let's pick another one. Let's go here. So let's say we decided to rename agents to agent. So that means we will have to decrement the count on the agents tag and then increment the count on the agent tag. So what I expect to happen is that we will see agents fall to 0 and then a new one appearing that's named agent, and that should be 1. Let's see. And that's what happens, right? Because we didn't implement any cleanup logic, which says if it falls to 0, we want to remove it, but we decided to keep it around. Cool. So that seems to work, but now we need to solve the puzzle. Why on earth do we end up with 2 documents if we save 1? That is a bit surprising. Where is my hello? Here it is. So we are in the artifact remote store. So if we add something, we're only ever adding it once. right? We're not adding it twice. And in here, in the update user tags, we also do we modify the document? Doesn't look like. So let's delete these. And that means all of the tags should fall to 0. Oh, maybe not. Look at that. That is something that we completely overlooked. Well, okay, that's something that we need to fix. And now let's add another of Antoine's articles, because I really want to understand what is the problem. Share, copy. Add. So it's adding it twice. Why is it adding it twice? So I am running into an interesting problem when I add a new artifact via the add artifact dialog. I end up with 2 new documents in the Firestore database. Why is that? And hello to everybody who's just tuning in now. So what we achieved so far is we fixed a problem when storing or updating metadata. And that was a problem with the Firestore, or how we use the Firestore set data method. And then we wipe coded a cloud function that automatically updates our tag counts whenever we use a new tag on a document. So, and now we're trying to resolve the puzzle why whenever we save a new document, we get 2 documents. So, oh no, really? It did. Really? There were 2 lines. It's incredible. Yeah. Well, okay, let's run this again. Oh, and now I'm curious. Yeah, look at that. So, because we had to change the schema to make sure that we're running against the emulator, our exe scheme file has been modified. So now if I run this from within Antigravity using FlowDeck, I should be connected to the emulator. Let's get the log. I think this is, yeah. Can you see that? So these are all the commands that that FlowDeck executes for us. right? So here you can see that it's using run symcontrol install, and it installs the application. Before that, it terminated the old application. Oh wow! And apparently, it also killed the simulator process after starting it. So it's quite interesting. So it's not magic. It is just lots of attention to detail, I would say. Good. So are we connected to the simulator? Apparently we're not. That is sad. But maybe we can figure out why. So let's update the schemes. Can we... This is for building and running. Other schemes. Yeah, maybe that's one thing that doesn't work. Even though this is... Let's give this one more try. I'm going to launch this directly from here, build and run. Yeah, I mean, it would probably have to add this to the command line, which apparently it doesn't do. Yeah, it doesn't do. Okay, so that's, I'm guessing that is a feature request I will have to send to the developer of the Flow Deck plugin. So let's run this from inside Xcode. So why does it take such a long time? Okay, let's stop this. And then let's try this again. Building, okay. Good, so we are connected. I'm going to delete those two. Delete this here as well. And then we can, let's delete the entire collection. Okay, and now I'm going to add this. Oh. share, copy. So when I add this and set the tags, so let's say Swift async. So we should get 2 tags now, but just 1 document for the artifact. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So here we go. We've got our artifact document, Swift and async, and we've got our tags sitting here. And I can go in, modify that, and say, this is also a wait. Save that. We should get a new tag. Here we go. And now when I manually update this and remove the async tag, this should update here. I did. And also the await async tag should now be 0. Yeah, correct. Nice. So there's one more thing that I want to do, and that is when I delete this, the tags should also be updated, which they aren't. So this is still all at 1. So let's delete this collection. Very nice of you. Thanks very much. There is one more thing that I would like you to implement, and that is if the user decides to delete a document, we also need to update the tags that were used on those documents. So that means it now has to implement another trigger. So here is the onDocumentWritten tag, trigger. So we need onDocumentDeleted. I'm sorry, but this doesn't work. I'm sorry, I tried this, but when deleting a document, the tags are not updated. Can you please verify the logic? Maybe we're missing something. Oh, interesting. So now it wants to curl to actually exercise the backend. Oh, what happened? Okay. Let's do that. So we've got nothing. I'm going to add a document. And I need to, this is weird, why this is going away. Share, copy. So no matter how I click, it always goes away. That is really funny. Anyways, so tags 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to delete this document. So 1, 2, 3. Delete the document. And nothing has changed. Okay. So now I wonder, okay, I added the document with the tags 1, 2, 3, and then I deleted the document again. The tags are still there, and they're still at a usage count of 1. Can we see the logs as well? Here. Okay, it wants me to do the same thing again. Why do we have 2 files called Firebase debug log? Same name, same folder. That shouldn't be possible. Okay, let's try. There, it's gone again. Share, copy. I'm just going to do it this way. Pastes, and then tags 1, no, 4, 5, 6. And delete. Still here. Done. So here is a log output. Yes, allow once. All right, so I'm guessing I will need to create a new document. Please delete the document again. Now, first we'll have to create it. Hello, you. And now let's delete this. Delete. Done. That's really funny. Why is it running outdated code? Yeah, fingers crossed. Test 1, test 2. So they're here, test 1. Delete. Yes. Okay, so the document is gone. Done. Okay, so apparently it was able to observe the problem. And now what is the problem? Oh man, why does it think that we're running outdated code? Yeah, so, okay, but this is just for this function here, right? So in this function, we make sure that we only compute the embeddings if the full text has changed. Yeah, one last time. It's always one last time. Test 3, test 4. Well, there is no emulator running. And that means, oh well, apparently it did. Okay. it somehow did launch the emulator. Deleting this now. Mm-hmm. Hmm. So I have verified the logs and the deletion logic is definitely working. It correctly identified the removed tags and decremented the count. I don't know. However, since you mentioned the count is still at 1, I have a strong suspicion. Duplicate code. No. Okay, so now it thinks that the iOS app is the culprit. No, I don't think that this is the case. Can you please stop the emulator and then rerun it again, including the GenKit code, and then I'm going to create a new document and delete it from within the Firebase Emulator console. That should completely rule out that the iOS application is at fault. So emulator is starting up again. Here we go. So we're gonna delete this entire collection here. And then I am going to add this document one more time. Copy. This is wild. So tag 1, tag 2, stop. So here we have our two documents, our one document, and the tags are in there. We've got our tag documents, they are at 1. So, okay, I created the document and added two tags, tag 1 and tag 2. So it's now verifying the log to check if what I said is actually true. Yes, so I'm going to delete this document now. Delete document. Boom. Done. No, it's still here. Wait, the tag documents were not updated. There is still showing a usage count of 1. Okay, so what is happening here? Okay, let's try this one more time, I guess. Share, copy. So, add the document, tag 1, tag 2, confirm. What? Why is it? So I think you broke this entirely. You are not saving the document at all at the moment. Okay, so maybe we'll just have to just go a step back and reset to where we were previously. Okay. So zombie processes, delete this data. Okay, please try again. Okay. Share copy, go home, add this test1, test2, add, nope. I tried adding, but it didn't work. Can you please roll back to the last working state? I think you made some modifications to the tags.ts file. Okay, so it keeps count of the steps apparently, so hopefully we'll get to a place where this will work again. We're still authenticated using that user ID, so hopefully that should be fine. And if we can't resolve this now, we'll just leave it be. And then I'll take more time in the coming days to fix this. Okay. Copy, go home, paste. It's not happening. Why is it not happening? Well, that teaches you okay, maybe let me restart the application. Maybe it's got to do with the app. So sign out, log in, test at tests.com, test 1, 2, 3, 4. Not now. Save this. Let's save without tags. Okay, so that worked. Now let's save this with tags. Test 1. Here we go. Okay, so what happens? So we delete this one, which should be fine. And then we go here, add another tag, test2. And we get another tag here, so that's fine. Okay, so we'll leave it at that because it's really late and I don't want to keep you for much longer. And I will find out what's the problem here, and then next time on the next stream I'll report back and tell you what it was. And with that, the next stream will be next Monday at 8 o'clock again, and we'll just continue working on this. So one of the next steps will be to add AI to the tag generation. So what I want to do is look at the text of the article that we're saving and then use AI to suggest tags, and ideally reuse the tags that we already have, and if required, add new tags as well. So with that, I hope you learned something new. I hope that you enjoyed watching me use Antigravity to build something and also struggle with how to use it. If you've got any ideas for or any suggestions for what I should cover next, any tools that I should use next, please let me know. And I will also probably start looking into setting up a couple of skills to teach Antigravity a little bit more about Firestore and to make the whole process a little bit easier. And with that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.